So let's look at Tampa, Toronto. This is the one that, for the sake of this podcast, we will be paying the most attention to. Right now, Alex is laughing about this. I have Toronto in
What do we do?
five.
What?
I have Toronto
Whoa.
in
Toronto
five.
in
Five.
five?
Five.
I have Toronto in five.
Jeez.
I thought I was gonna be edgy with
So,
mine.
uh, what is yours?
I was gonna say Toronto in six,
Okay.
and then I thought I was gonna
No.
be the shocking one.
Oh man. Okay. Since we're all giving our predictions, I'm going Toronto in seven. Actually,
Okay.
yeah. Is that what I said? I wrote this down somewhere. Yeah, I have Toronto in seven. Um, listen, I don't. So Mike asked me a good question. Mike asked me a really good question, which he doesn't do often. A couple weeks ago, he asked me, "Why are you so high on Tampa because like it's the impending doom that's coming, or is it because of like the respect factor?" And I go, "It's both. Like the to me is they." I understand he's not having a particularly fantastic year, but Andre Vasilevsky is Andre Vasilevsky. Victor Hedman, who also isn't having a great Victor Hedman year, is still Victor Hedman. And I think you look at the core they have up front can turn it on. I'm not saying Toronto can't do those things. I'm just saying, has anyone watched Tampa the last 3 years? Maybe their luck is going to run out. I don't know, but recent history has not shown me that. So I think this is going to be a lot tougher series than maybe some people expect. I do acknowledge the fact that Tampa did not end the season well. They just didn't. They were like 3-8 in their last 11. Whether John Cooper says there was a lack of intensity or not, the Leafs' two best players weren't in the lineup in their last matchup. They were playing Joseph Wall. Connor Timmins was a third line forward. Like, and they barely beat. They couldn't even. They couldn't even beat the Leafs. I'm going to acknowledge that. I just think this series is going seven. I think it's inevitable.
So my thing in five is not a disrespect to the Tampa Bay Lightning. Listen, I think people need to remember that this is still a team that finished very comfortably third in their division, and in a division that has the best regular season team we've ever seen ahead of them. So you slant it.
Yeah.
It's just a thing of, I just think the Leafs are more talented right now. I think they'll miss Andre Palat more than we know right now. Will Tampa? By the way, when it comes to goal saved above average, Vasilevsky is still seventh right now on Money Puck. So he's obviously still a factor. Kucherov was like third in scoring in that. I just think it's time. Like, again, if you take away, that is a very good question by Mike. If you take away just pure respecting and you look at what you see right now, comparing its team, and you take away the doomsday clock, shout out Watchmen. You take away the doomsday clock for Toronto. There's a reason they're the favorites in sort of any way you look at it. Again, and I am a Habs fan saying that. I am taking away two teams that I despise. One that beat the team I love a few years ago in the finals, and the Leafs. I don't have to explain why that's a problem. But it's just, I think if you look at it, again, Vasilevsky is the edge in net, and if anyone tries to tell you otherwise, they're stupid. Like, let's not even debate that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I do think right now in the forward group wise, that elite talent is still there. Like Braden Point, I don't remember if he ended up hitting 50. But
He did. He did.
But Marner was a 99-point player. We're not rounding up Sheldon. That's not how it works. But like Matthews, let's not forget too. The end of the season, he really started to pick up his form.
Yeah.
Right.
Nylander needs to pick it up a bit. Thank you for stopping playing in the middle of fantasy, William. God damn it. But I think there's enough there, and the depth is better than it was last year. I just don't. I hate to say it, but I just don't see a way that Tampa get over the hump this time. And realistically, this is a series that probably should be later in the playoffs. It's another one where
Yeah.
you hate it's in the first round, but man, eventually the magic has to wear off.
Before Daniel goes, I just want to add like one point to what you're saying, and I think this isn't disrespect to the Tampa Bay Lightning, but I will say if you look at the past this year and the last 3 years before, this team is arguably the worst one, quote unquote. Like, and I don't mean that as like it's still a hell of a team, man. Like that, I could watch this Tampa Bay Lightning every day. But arguably, I think you could very much make the argument that it's just not the same team that they've been the last 3 years, but they still deserve the respect that they've gotten. It's also blatant disrespect that Zach Bogosian was on the fourth pair yesterday in practice. So I will say that. Daniel, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, for me, I think on your point, Alex, about this Lightning team, it's still an elite team. I believe so, but I think it's just the way the cap has been, the way they've been able to bring these guys in and really develop them. It's just at a certain point, especially when they're younger, you have to pay these guys. And I think they just cut off a large chunk in the offseason already, losing Andre Palat, like you mentioned. I think a big thing was getting rid of Ryan McDonough because they got really essentially nothing back for him. Like Philip Myers was back and forth on waivers. Tanner DeJeanot, I think that was a very solid one, but I don't know. I think they're just a bit weaker in terms of two things: the clutch goals for Andre Palat, or that back end where I know Sergachev has become arguably a number 2 defenseman at this point, and I just still don't think that there's just like there's not enough of what we've seen from previous seasons. And when you've mentioned the Leafs, Adam, it is that feeling of it is a more complete team. Again, I mentioned it to the 2015 Blue Jays. I've been comparing that like crazy, where Kyle Dubas, Alex Anthopoulos, both in their final years, no talks of an extension right now, and they went all in the deadline, and they just kind of we're going to think about what's going to happen later on, but let's just go with this team. I think the Leafs are tougher. I think they were more responsible. I think that when we saw a bad game from them, they were able to bounce back a lot more quickly. So I think that's a big factor for me now in this playoffs is they're going to take 1 or 2 losses maybe, and they're going to be able to bounce back. And I think that's just the difference of what I see with this team. So that's why I'm still picking Toronto. I picked them last year. I was pretty close. They got to game 7. So I'll choose game 6.
I don't think I picked them last year, if I remember correctly. I think I had Tampa in 7. But I will say, sorry, that McDonough, that's a really good point about McDonough. I actually completely forgot about that. And it's not a slight against Sergachev. It's the fact that you have 3 left-handed defensemen, and every single pair you are just sending out an elite defenseman. And I think by losing McDonough, that's just the inevitable. It's nothing against Sergachev. It's just it's the same thing if you have O'Reilly playing third line center. It's 1 Matthews, 2 Tavares, 3 O'Reilly. Like it's just a nightmare. Like it's just that's what it is.
They're also 2 very different players. Like I get the level of it, but it's like I don't know if Sergachev's gonna have the defensive commitment.
Sure.
Or bring what McDonough will.
Also, natural leader too. I think that's the one thing we forget. Is like this is a guy that has been to the finals as a captain with the Rangers.
Right.
He's been through it all. I think the ups and downs with Tampa. So that was like a big piece that was lost, I think.
Before we move on, though, I will say I would love if the Leafs win in 5 because I'm supposed to be in Ottawa the weekend of Game 6. So I'd prefer them not to win while I'm in Ottawa.
Fair enough. Also, how healthy is Tanner Jeannot? One thing we should mention there.